Ryan.
I'm Karen.
And I'm Monica, and we decided to do our rhetorical analysis on Legally Blonde 2.
We will be analyzing the structure, delivery, context, and structure that she used in the speech. One of the many aspects she used in her speech was problem solution. This is where she introduced the problem, which was the education of the actual problem that was in America, and she had her solution be of speaking up for these issues. She also included her thesis at the very beginning of her speech, which created for a great use of strategy to get the audience's attention. In the beginning, she also was using a manuscript organization, which is where she would read word for word what her speech was. Although she actually ended up using impromptu for the remainder of her speech, which made her speak more passionately and more proudly about the subject of educating people on their need to speak up. She also used some main attention-getting strategies in her speech, which included storytelling, personal interest, analogy, and question. For her story, she told the story of how she ended up getting a bad hair job because she didn't speak up for what was bothering her. Her personal interest included the Julia Roberts and famous celebrity mentions in her speech. The analogy was basically her entire speech because she was comparing how she had a bad hair job to America not standing up or speaking up for what they believe in. Her use of rhetorical questions were, how can this small girl from Bel Air have all this to say, and you know. These rhetorical questions were basically directed towards the audience, but did not need an answer. One more main attention-getting strategy that she used was humor. Her humor with her story of her hair was humorous to the audience because she was talking about her hair to Congress, which is something that you don't really hear about.
So Legally Blonde 2 is basically about the main character, Elle Woods, who has a dog named Bruiser. Kind of a little side note about it, Legally Blonde, the first movie, it's basically just about Elle Woods becoming a lawyer and just going to school at Harvard and just excelling in her life, who she had Bruiser with her the entire time. But the second movie, it's more on the lines of Bruiser's mom, as she's just kind of walking through this hospital and she ends up seeing this laboratory that's doing makeup testing on the dogs, and Bruiser's mom is actually one of those dogs that they're doing it on. So she gets really angry and she basically just becomes an activist against animal testing in makeup laboratories, and basically just wants to outlaw that entire thing, which therefore Bruiser's bill becomes into effect, and she writes it while she's working for attorney's office, and she basically just uses all her resources and gets it all together, and Bruiser's will becomes into effect. So at the beginning of the speech, right away, she has this very serious tone to her. She pauses, and kind of after that, like Ryan went over, she became very impromptu, and then she just spoke from the heart, spoke what her feelings were, and that's how her delivery became very impromptu, very passionate. It also showed, as she's had so much like passion within her speaking, it showed this very inflection within her voice of just feeling so passionate and having such a connection and relationship with the topic, which showed while she was getting her speech and made it so much more relatable to other people, and not so much of just standing there having such a manuscript and speaking to everyone but not having so much meaning. Other delivery techniques that Elle Woods uses is hand gestures. When she's being very serious at the beginning, she's kind of doing this movement and just being very critical on her hand movements, but then when she kind of became impromptu and just spoke from the heart and just that type of thing, she got very relatable and kind of funny and more fluent and just kind of moving and giving good eye contact to everyone in the audience and just moving around, relating to people, saying how we said inclusive language, how she was saying we and you and all these different things. She made it very much more relatable. And also more on the lines of Prem, which we went over in class. She knew the podium very well because it was on the floor of Congress, so she had to know her setting very well. She also had the room very interested in her conversation. She over all the techniques that we are already went over. And she also had the equipment used very well. She spoke very well into the microphone, and the lights were all perfect. She was dressed properly. Everything was very set into place.
One of the parts we are analyzing in the speech is creative language, and one rhetorical device as part of creative language is metaphors. In her speech, one of the metaphors she said was, I know that one honest voice can be louder than a crowd, and the other metaphor she used is, this country is in for a really bad haircut. Another rhetorical device that she used for creative language is parallel structure. She said, just wrong, all wrong. She said, I forgot, I know that, I know 3 times. She also said, this country, and she said, speak up, America, speak up, at least 4 times at the end of the speech. Another part of her creative language was alliteration. Some examples she used was simple small town. Also, when she was talking about hair color, when she was describing her story, was Brazy Brigitte and Harlow Honey. Another rhetorical device she used for creative language was rhetorical questions. She used this as a way to appeal to her audience and get their attention. She said, who is this girl, and what could this small town girl from Bel Air give to us? Also, she said, to help her point. She also incorporated Aristotle's proofs in her speech. She used ethos, pathos, and logos. For ethos, she claims that she had been in the law firm for 3 months, receiving education there, which appeals to her credibility. Also, for ethos, she incorporates the American sayings, home of the brave and land of the free, gift with purchase. One thing that did hurt her ethos was the stereotype of her having blonde hair. People already associated that with not being incredibly smart, and the fact that she brought up of her story about hair products and her hair story made it seem to the audience that she was not very smart and capable of giving her speech. She also incorporated pathos, talking about how she forgot to believe in herself, drawing sympathy from the audience. She also incorporated logos, which is logic and reasoning, with her story of her bad haircut. One of the last aspects she used for creative language was inclusive language. For this, she mostly used the word we, as saying if we, relating it to America as a whole and the country to help her be inclusive with the audience. Overall, the Legally Blonde 2 Speak Up speech was extremely inspiring, and the Brausser bill passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.